Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NJBIA Live from the State Capitol. I'm Vinny Civitello, Communications Manager for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is our very own Chief Government Affairs Officer, Chrissy Buteas. A few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. I'd also like to draw your attention to the Handouts and Questions tabs. In the Handouts tab, you can download the PowerPoint for today's webinar. I get a lot of questions asking how people can do that. So just open up your GoToWebinar panel, click on Handouts, and right in there you'll see a file, LFTSC PPTX or whatever, that's live from the state capitol. So just click that and you can download them right to your computer. The Questions tab, if you go in on your tab, you can type in a question and I'll make sure Chrissy answers it. So don't hesitate to do that as they come to you, and I can't stress that enough. Type in the questions as they come to you, or you might forget what you wanted to know by the time we hit the Q&A. So now let's get things started. Chrissy?
Well, thank you, Vinny, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here, and happy Wednesday. This is my first webinar since joining NJBIA, and I am looking forward to sharing with you what's going on with energy and environment issues and what NJBIA is doing about them on behalf of business across New Jersey. Still in the first year of Governor Phil Murphy's administration, some of the biggest changes you'll be seeing are on the energy side and also on the environmental front. So let's get started. I'm sure you heard a lot about it. The governor has proposed stakeholder meetings to begin formulating the Energy Master Plan. The Energy Master Plan is a comprehensive plan that highlights production, distribution, consumption, and conservation of electricity in New Jersey, and it's been around since 1977. NJBIA will participate in stakeholder meetings this September to give information about business concerns before they start drafting the new plan. Just so you're aware, the final plan is due by June of next year. Important to note, and I mentioned it previously, these stakeholder meetings are taking place as we speak. There was one last Friday afternoon, and there will be the second stakeholder meeting this Friday. If you would like a list of all the stakeholder meetings, please email me and I'd be sure to provide them to you. So some of the big news. Governor Murphy wants electricity to be carbon-free by 2050. And as we all know, he signed an executive order requiring New Jersey's electricity to come from 100% clean energy sources. So that's a great goal. So how do we get there is another matter. So for the governor, it includes implementing the offshore wind law, and more about this to come later. He wants to include community solar as part of his solar energy program. Basically, it's a federal program designed to help low-income and multifamily dwellings reap the benefits of solar energy savings. There's also a component around energy storage batteries. Wind and solar are great sources of electricity, but the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So battery storage technology has advanced a great deal in recent years, and it allows us to store up renewable energy and then release it during peak hours or when environmental conditions require it. And NJBIA is supporting legislation to study ways to take advantage of that technology. And we also have the use of electric vehicles and our transportation fleet. Lots of discussions taking place around the New Jersey taking part in grant programs for EV chargers. If you're interested in hearing more about some of the workforce grants related to electric vehicles, again, please feel free to contact me and I'd be happy to provide you with more information. Moving forward, if you haven't heard, I'll be the first to tell you, New Jersey is rejoining ReGI. For those who don't know, ReGI stands for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So basically, it's a cap and trade program among 9 northeastern states. New Jersey joined back in 2006, but Governor Christie withdrew from the agreement. ReGI limits greenhouse gas emissions from electricity generators by auctioning off carbon allowances. Plants that exceed the limits can buy the allowances from those that remain below the threshold. So Governor Murphy is putting us back in. That would make the alliance 10 states. There's also talk of Virginia joining as well. New DEP Commissioner Catherine McCabe discussed the process at our recent June Meet the Decision Makers event. She said the state was well along in both the rulemaking and negotiation process. This would involve two rule proposals. One, to set the mechanics to conform New Jersey's approach to the ReGI model, and two, to govern how the proceeds of the allowance auctions will be spent. As you're probably aware, NJBIA opposes New Jersey's return to ReGI, and we are already leading, as New Jersey is already a leader in curbing emissions and producing clean power. Additional compliance costs will likely be absorbed by our residents and businesses. So what else is on tap? We've heard a lot about offshore wind energy, and we know the governor is going all in on wind. In January, he signed an executive order requiring the BPU and the DEP to implement the Offshore Wind Energy Development Act. The goal? To generate 3,500 megawatts of power from wind by 2030. Again, 3,500 megawatts by 2030. It would also create the Offshore Renewable Energy Certificate, what's commonly known as the OREC. For NJBIA's part, we find wind energy an exciting opportunity economically. The reoccurring theme in these programs, remember the ratepayers, however. Clean energy is not free. It takes up a heavy investment. The utility companies will really want to know that they are going to get a return on investment as well. And NJBIA wants to make sure we get the deals that are both good for business that buy electricity. Again, after all, 64% of electricity in New Jersey is consumed by commercial and industrial ratepayers. Specifically, we have asked the BPU to consider the cost-benefit analysis for ratepayers to subsidize this type of power and how much this new energy source will cost businesses. So what else on the plus side? How else will this impact the economy? How many jobs will be gained as a result of the project? And how can New Jersey ensure through workforce development strategies that we capture these jobs? So again, as we see, offshore wind is certainly a priority of Governor Murphy's agenda. Now on to solar energy. I specifically want to highlight the Community Solar Pilot Project. Again, this is a new initiative put forth by Governor Murphy's administration. The Community Solar Pilot Program is part of a federal initiative to allow multiple residences to pool their resources for new solar energy projects. Again, the idea is to increase the use of solar technology in communities where they may not have many inroads to solar. It makes it possible for people to invest in solar together and benefit by owning or leasing a portion of a system or by purchasing kilowatt-hour blocks of renewable energy generation. BIA urged the BPU to ensure projects are scaled to reflect solar energy demand in order to protect our solar ratepayers. And again, I think the BPU should adopt several lessons learned from elsewhere in the country. We should attempt to understand the demand for solar energy from those that this program is intended to benefit: residential and low-income subscribers who cannot attach solar arrays to their homes for financial or other reasons. And also, we should definitely encourage our businesses to participate. Businesses can be both subscribers and hosts, as business locations may be able to site some of these projects if they are open to the concept. So more to come on solar energy. And now I'm sure many of you have heard a lot about the discussion around the banning or taxing of plastic bags. And again, nobody likes those plastic bags that you take your groceries home in. So people are trying to get rid of them altogether or tax them so that we can shrink the amount of usage that is currently taking place. So first, just as I mentioned, there was an attempt to tax them out of existence. There was a bill imposing a 5-cent tax on stores and their customers that was passed by the legislature this past June and sent to Governor Murphy for his consideration. I think we're all aware that he vetoed that legislation, not because he was against a tax so much that he wants to ban the plastic bags altogether. And defending the plastic bag is a job that has fallen onto NJBIA. In some, like, let's face it, in some circles, this is actually a very unpopular position. The idea that taxing or banning single-use plastic bags in New Jersey will protect our environment simply does not stand up to the facts, but it will have a real impact on the state's small business community. So what do we believe? We need to bolster the state's recycling programs, and that would be far more effective in reducing pollution from plastic bags and protect jobs and the economy at the same time. We testified to that effect at a joint hearing of the Senate and Assembly Environment Committees in Toms River over the summer. And today, where are we at this point? We're waiting to see if the legislature is going to take up considering an all-right ban on plastic bags. And just so you're all aware, New Jersey's plastic industry is the 17th largest in the country and directly represents more than 18,000 workers in the state. So I think it's fair to say that the plastic bag discussion has just begun and is not complete as of yet. Moving on, I think many folks have heard a lot about natural resources damages. Back on August 1st, the Attorney General announced New Jersey is back in the environmental enforcement business. The state filed lawsuits against 6 companies seeking to recover damages for the cost of cleanups. For 3 of those companies, the state is also seeking natural resource damages, what we commonly refer to as NRD. NRD cases involve claims for the loss to the value and use of natural resources, including surface and groundwater sediments and wetlands. They go beyond simply recovering taxpayer money. Again, NJBIA is okay with the enforcement against egregious bad actors. Our concern is that if the state goes after unwitting businesses without attempting to resolve issues through compliance. As we know, New Jersey has a morass of environmental regulations that can cause unnecessary burdens on our well-intentioned companies that are already challenged to keep up with the high cost of doing business in the state. So in those cases, it's important that environmental regulators provide the option of compliance assistance and help for practical and timely resolutions to issues rather than inhibiting the growth of New Jersey's job creators. In fact, it's important to also mention that Senator Bob Smith, the chairman of the Senate and Environment Committee, is also holding task force meetings across the state with a group of stakeholders to come up with some streamlined NRD regulations. So more to come on that in the future. I think there's a lot of discussion in the news lately around water and water infrastructure. Possibly one of New Jersey's biggest challenges moving forward. Can you believe that some of our pipes are over 100 years old? Nearly 90% of New Jerseyans, as well as businesses and government facilities, rely on public community water systems for their drinking water. New Jersey's water supply systems were constructed largely during peak periods of development, primarily from 1890 to 1930, when major cities grew, and from 1950 to 1970. We have over 475 community water systems. Drinking water treatment plants are routinely required, meaning to meet required standards. In short, New Jersey's water systems work okay for now. The problem is we obviously need to make some severe upgrades moving forward. The same is true on the wastewater front. New Jersey's sewer collection systems were constructed largely during the same peak periods as I mentioned during drinking water. And like drinking water, there is no comprehensive system for understanding the current status and needs of wastewater infrastructure, rehabilitation, and upgrades. So what are some of the things that have been put forth in the legislature to consider how to fix this or address this issue? There's been a stormwater utility bill and also a water tax piece of legislation that would essentially tax our water. NJBIA has been opposed to both of those initiatives, and we look forward to working with stakeholders to develop a comprehensive plan to address not only our water infrastructure, but our wastewater and drinking water infrastructure as well. So in closing, I hope you join us on October 19th for our Meet the Decision Makers event. It's going to be held at the National Conference Center in East Windsor. We're going to be pleased to have our Board of Public Utilities President, Joe Fiordaliso, join us. I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion. So again, that's on October 19th. And if you'd like to get more involved in NJBIA's energy and environment policy, we do have committee meetings that meet on a regular basis. In fact, our Energy and Environment Committee meeting is coming up on October 9th. That's Tuesday, October 9th. That'll be here around 9 a.m. at NJBIA. This is a great way for you to interact with other stakeholders in the energy and environment field, and also receive updates from our team as well as our invited guests. We're still waiting for confirmation, but we certainly have invited the BPU and the DEP to join us at that committee meeting. So if you're not receiving emails or notices about our committee meetings, again, I would highly encourage you to reach out to me, and I'll be sure to add you to the list. So as you can see, I briefly went over some of the high-level issues that are confronting the state, both on the energy and environment side. This has been, again, a major focus of Governor Murphy's and has had the BPU and the DEP active at work addressing many of the issues that I spoke about, and there's more to come as well. So we are going back into our legislative session this Thursday. Legislature starts meeting again, and BIA will be certainly monitoring all the activity that's going to be taking place both in our Senate and Assembly committees. So a lot of updates are set to come out, and we will keep you apprised of any developing policy. So thanks again, Vinny. Thanks again, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, Chrissy. We have one question here already, but I want to give everyone else a moment to type in anything they have. So while I'm doing that, I'll take a second to remind you about the Handouts tab once again. We get a lot of questions from people about how to download the slides, so just open up the tab marked Handouts in your GoToWebinar panel, and the file is right there. You can also just wait until tomorrow, and they'll be emailed to you along with the video recording of today's webinar. And there's the questions tab. If you have a question, type it in right there, and I'll make sure Chrissy answers it. And don't be shy. You've got an expert here, so make sure to take advantage of her. You're going to get a survey when this is done asking what you thought of the webinar, and I can't tell you how lame it is to see people write things like, I was really disappointed because I thought she'd cover X, but didn't. If there's something relevant you'd like Chrissy to cover, by all means, ask the question. So with that out of the way, let's jump right to our first question that comes from Charlie, who would like to know, I heard that environmental justice is a priority for Governor Murphy. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Thanks, Charlie, for that question. So again, Governor Murphy, through an executive order, in this case it was Executive Order 23, asked the Department of Environmental Protection and also some other departments to really take environmental justice into account. For lack of a better definition, just bear with me as I read it to you. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. You know, environmental justice, EJ, as again we're commonly calling it, is really supposed to make sure that communities of color and low-income communities that may have been disproportionately exposed to certain contaminants, that's all taken into consideration. Certainly from the business community perspective, we're very mindful of that, but at the same time, we want to make sure that any policies moving forward, especially in our cities where we're trying to encourage investment, aren't thwarted by additional regulations. So I think it's reaching that happy medium of how do we achieve growing our businesses while taking into account some historic industrial pollution that has been in effect. So again, that's something that NJBIA, on behalf of our members, will be testifying to the effect of there are stakeholder meetings taking place again. So there you see a common theme here. There's energy master plan stakeholder meetings, and there's also environmental justice stakeholder meetings taking place. So if you are interested in weighing in on this important matter, I would be happy to provide you with that schedule of stakeholder meetings as well. In fact, the first stakeholder meeting is tomorrow.
Okay, well, that's all the questions we have. So I guess it's as good a time as any to bring this to a close. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. Lastly, when you close out of the webinar, a survey will come up on your screen that we hope you'll fill out so we can understand how best to provide you important information in a webinar format. Our next webinar, Growing Your Business with Sustainable Practices, will take place Wednesday, September 19th. So by all means, feel free to register for that one right on our website at njbia.org. So until next time, for Chrissy Buteas, this is Vinny Civitello, thanking you for being with us this morning and wishing you a great day.